Allegiance, please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, folks. This is Mike Dolan. John Garish, our chair, could not be with us tonight, so I am stepping into his spot for the evening. We do have a quorum. Are there any opening remarks from Mr. Dutton or Mr. Swenson?
Mr. Dutton on?
He is.
I am. Nothing for me. Thanks.
Just as far as from myself, I would say if anyone gets a chance to drive down South Street and peek into the lot, the building's dead. Don't see much other than a foundation. So the demo crew has done a fabulous job on the timeline. And I drove into the lot today, and it's pretty much down to the foundation. So great job with our demo team, and staying on that timeline, which I believe was projected to be complete as of next week. So looks like we're in good shape as far as the demolition side of things currently. So thank you to those folks.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson. We will get a formal report from the demo folks at probably the last meeting we have in August. So that will be on our agenda in a couple of weeks. So OPM update. You are set, Joe.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen so I can bring up the report. I'll go page by page. If you have any questions, feel free to stop and just ask me any questions that you might have, and then I'll go through it. Can everybody see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go to I'm going to go to slide 2, and slide 2. Why do I have? Slide 2 is basically a progress report. Demolition of the old school.
Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt. Folks, is everyone seeing a cut-off version of the slides?
Yes, it's a little bigger than the screen itself.
Joe, is it possible you could zoom out?
Better?
Nope, that's
Oh,
still,
yes.
We're missing the beginning of the left-hand margin and the right-hand margin are missing from your screen. I don't know why, but sorry.
See it now?
Make it smaller.
Can you minimize it?
In.
Zoom out, maybe? In?
Right.
We're gonna go in. You want to get smaller.
I'm trying.
Okay.
Nothing?
If you hold down the control button and scroll your mouse towards you, it'll shrink. It should shrink.
Joe, would you like me to share?
Yeah, why don't you? Oh, for some reason, my Apple computer's not responding.
I'm disabled from screen sharing.
Yeah. So Anne, could you enable Alyssa as a there you go. Perfect. Thanks, Anne.
Oh, I was at full screen. I see.
Oh, that could be why, Joe. Perfect.
Much
Thank
better?
you. Yeah, that's
Yes.
perfect. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. We're going to go to slide 2.
There you go.
The progress report is basically, as Derek indicated, that the demolition of the school, it's all down right now, and we basically have it in piles, and they're slowly taking those piles off-site. They anticipate that work to continue through the end of the week. Thursday, they're looking to actually make sure the elevator portion of the school is removed. And in doing so, there's a company that'll come in and remove the hydraulic portion of the elevator just to make sure there's no contaminants, and then the rest of the foundation around that area can be removed. The project was presented to the Bridgewater Conservation July 9th. The Conservation approved the project and will issue an order of conditions related to that. The project is currently under review at the Planning Board as of July 15th. There'll be another hearing on the 5th of August, and that's coming up pretty quick. IDA and DPI representatives from the school district have been actually in virtually meeting as a work group on feedback on the design. We went through finishes today, and Jean will I'm sure will have plenty of slides related to that. It's kind of exciting to see the design of the interior start to come together, and I hope the committee enjoys the presentation today. IDA and their consultants are working to develop the 90% construction documents. The MSBA submission is due at the end of the month. We're supplying the design for cost estimating purposes on Friday of this coming week. And we anticipate, 2.5 weeks of cost estimating, and then we're going to have a reconciliation meeting and then be able to present to the committee shortly thereafter. And the last portion of this is the pre-qualifications for the general and file subs were received on the 15th. We've met with the pre-qualification committee and are currently reviewing and scoring packages and checking references. Next slide, please. Now you're going to see some photos of obviously the demolition that's going on. Where there once was a school, there is no longer. One of the things that during this whole process, we ended up leaving a portion of the foundation, and that part of that foundation is tentatively scheduled to be utilized as part of the new school foundation. And in doing so, the school, and if you can go to the next photo, you'll start to see some of what I'm going to be describing. This is from the back looking at the existing school. You'll see the foundation on the left photo that it's fairly high. That debris is now being removed and piled, which is going to leave somewhat of a fall hazard along there. Although we have areas along the location, the fire department from Bridgewater had showed and aired some concern that the fall may be present there if some child or individual gets inside the fence area. We have a 6-foot fence and it's chained and locked, but inadvertently, if someone got in there and walked in the darkness, they have a potential of falling 10 to 12 feet. So we've been asked to get a price for material just to backfill that side of the foundation if anyone falls into it. What I suggested and what I recommended to the committee is to utilize some type of material that we would be using on site. And a few examples was some dense grade material that would be using for compaction. And then a suggestion came up with 3/4 stone, because we're going to be using a lot of stone for drainage, and we can quantify it relatively easy by getting trailer loads of stone there and then quantifying it as part of the bid package, saying the stone will be on site for utilization on the location, so that we'll get a reduced cost of supplying material through the general contractor, and it meets our needs tentatively for safety reasons for the site. Does that make sense? Okay, hearing no comment, which is good. Go to the next slide, please. You'll see that most
Mike,
of the. Go ahead.
Mike, can I just ask you a question about
Go for it, Pat. Yeah. Sorry, I can't see folks, so you just have to speak up.
No, that's
Hi,
all right.
Pat.
So did I hear that we're going to use part of the I always thought that the scope of the demo is just to remove the building down to the foundation anyway. Wasn't that the scope of the bid?
That's correct. That's correct. But removing that, by removing everything but the foundation, it's creating a fall hazard pad on that facade, on the backside facade.
Oh, and I get that, and I I agree with the remedy, but I guess I heard another statement that I just wanted to make sure I heard correctly.
Yeah.
Are we actually considering using some existing foundation walls for the new building?
The answer is no, we're not. What that wall was to do, because it's a cut and fill, to remove that, I was told through the design team that it would jeopardize some of the stability of the footing and foundation around that area. That's why it's staying until the building design is out to bid to the general contractor.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that. So in the end, so we're leaving the foundation there now, because from what I understood was because we may be able to grind it up on site and reuse it. Number one, and number two, I thought it was like more of a conservation thing, because we didn't want we wanted to keep the site stabilized.
Correct.
So, but I wanted to make sure I didn't hear that we're not using any of that existing foundation for the new building itself, correct?
That's correct. I meant we were utilizing the foundation to stay in place to stabilize the soils. That's all.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure I heard it correctly.
Thank you for the clarification on that. So as I was indicating on this photo, most of that debris is being piled. It's being sorted and being trucked out individually. And we'll get a report as it was indicated earlier that the demo contractor will provide what was recycled, what went to the landfill, and what was reutilized as far as putting it into material that could be reused at other locations. Next slide, please. You can see, and that was probably a good indication of the distance from where the grade on the front of the school is to the downside of that lower slab. Can you see that all right?
Yep.
Okay, next slide. The site looks barren. Oh, no, too far. So you can see from the front where there once was a school, there is no longer. And the good news is the tree, the memorial tree to the right is still in the fenced area and protected. I just wanted to make that very clear.
Thank you.
Next slide.
Joe, hold on one second. Kathy has a question. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I just had a question on the planning board hearings. So do we know, was this something that came up at the 15th meeting that we have another hearing for the 5th, or is it just the normal process?
It's the normal
Were there
process.
concerns that we need to address?
Well, it's typically the normal process. I've yet to be in front of a planning board where they approve it the first time through. Typically, they need a little bit of, they ask a few questions and they request a little more additional information. And then it may even go to a third hearing in some cases. But the planning board, from my understanding, was that they had some clarity and some questions that they needed answered, and those will be provided at the next meeting. And then we'll go through, there's stipulations that they'll put on the project for approval purposes. And Pat, you can speak on behalf of that, I'm sure, but it's standard protocol to have a few meetings regarding a project.
Yeah, so I checked with the town engineer last week, and I think I provided Mike Dolan with an update as well that we had some requirements that was some outstanding issues that information was still missing on. It's on the agenda for Wednesday night, and everything has been submitted and reviewed by the town engineer. So I'm sure he'll give us an update on Wednesday, and the board can decide if they want to act at that point. But I don't believe there's any outstanding issues after talking to the outstanding information after talking to the town engineer. He got everything he needed.
Thank you.
Welcome. Schedule and milestones, obviously the demolition progress is, we're going to meet our August 10th date. They anticipate to have a lot of the material removed by Friday, and then they'll be doing some selective removal of flashing and any type of waterproofing membrane along the foundation area. Pre-qualifications, as I indicated, are ongoing. We anticipate updating the committee with a formal list of GCs and file subcontractors that will be pre-qualified for the bidding procurement of this project. 90% construction documents are scheduled for the end of the month, and we'll be submitting to the MSBA 90% CD submission on August 28th. I was told they might give us some time into the first week in September, depending on how things are, but right now we're shooting for the end of the month. We're looking to bid the project in October and award sometime in November, and hopefully have construction start early to late December. Next slide, please. Upcoming meetings. Obviously, we're having a meeting today to discuss the demo, building finishes, security and controls. School building committee meeting 44 will be August 17th. Demo, building finishes, site improvements, and then school building committee 45 will be the 31st. Approval of the pre-qualification general contractors and file subs, signage, interior, exterior, and directional. Room layouts and data sheets will be going part of that agenda on the 31st. Next slide, please.
Did Kathy have a question on this one?
Sure.
Hey, actually, is that the last slide? I just had a question, if you could talk a little bit more about that stone, and it looks like we need to do that really quickly if they're going to be done this week.
What's going to be done? I didn't hear that part
You
of it.
said that the rest of the demolition would be done this week, so we have that safety hazard. So do we need to put that stone out for bid? Do we need to approve it as a team? Like, what's the timeline for that?
We just received from RDA a quantity that they're looking for, and I believe it's there was
600 gallons.
a few. Gene, how many truckloads was the? Do you know how many? I saw an email come through.
Yeah, I think it was 20 going off memory.
Yeah, 20,
like
20
600 cubic
truckloads.
yards.
And so we're getting numbers for the costs associated with that from the demo contractor currently. Once I have that number, the answer is we'd like to do it sooner than later. Obviously, I don't want to leave it, if it takes a week to get an approval, I'm okay with that, but I don't want to leave it for a month with a foundation in that manner. So I guess.
No, sorry, go ahead. Finish
Okay.
your thought. Sorry. I wanted to make sure, are you okay with waiting until the 17th?
Yeah, I feel comfortable. I don't think the demo contractor will be completely out of there by the 17th. I mean, I think I shouldn't say that. He'll be getting the material. There'll be work still going on, and I think if we make a decision by the 17th, we'll be okay.
Okay, so I'm assuming we would need to vote on that.
Correct. That would be a change order to the demo contractor to bring that stone in place.
Okay, very good. So we'll make sure that's on the agenda for the 17th.
And in the event that we need to make a decision sooner than that, I'll reach out to you and we can have some conversation on it, depending on the costs associated with it, whether we have to schedule a quick meeting over it.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions before Joe continues?
All right. So the following meetings are going to be the building committee meeting number 46. That'll be schedule, bidding, conversations, lead, scorecard, energy efficiency, and then phasing, logistics, construction signage, and staging, construction staging. Basically, we can go over this in detail as we move forward, but they're going to logistically set the site up appropriately for construction. And we just want to make sure that it meets not only the district's needs, but the town's needs as far as locations and trailers and how trucks come in and sequence in there. School building committee meeting 47 will be the schedule and bidding. By September 28th, we'll have a clear indication as to what the schedule will be and when we can expect the bids. And then school building committee number 48, November 23rd, will review the general and file subcontractor bids, approve the bid awards, and review the final schedule for construction.
So Joe, I just want to put on everybody's radar, the 23rd is the week of Thanksgiving. I don't know if that's an issue for anyone, but we will need a quorum. Otherwise, if we can't get a quorum, we would need to move that meeting potentially to the week prior. But that is the Monday prior to Thanksgiving. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
So what we could do, and I don't think that would be much of a problem to do. I mean, the issue is it's going to come down to schedule to figure out when we'll actually have bids in hands to make that decision. That's all. We just I gotta look at the schedule and sequence it around it.
Yeah,
Because it's typically 6 weeks. It's 4 weeks for subcontractors and 2 weeks for generals.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a note on that just to look at that a little closer. The project budget, as you can see through from the feasibility down through the contingency, you can see the money spent to date, money committed, and amount budgeted. So we're in good shape overall. We're right on track with our current schedule with the design and the demo portion of it. So overall, it's a positive for the overall project as of right now. Any questions at all? PFA budgets $80,600,000. MSBA reimbursement rate is 59.28. We've submitted to MSBA ProPay 1 through 11 for reimbursement of $3,269,343. Amount reimbursed. We've submitted on 3 million. We've gotten reimbursed 1,068,154. ProPay 10 and 11 are currently under review with MSBA, and I haven't seen the comments back from them as of right now. And that's it. Alyssa, if you could stop sharing your screen, that would be great. Perfect.
Any questions for Joe before we move on to designer update?
Mike, if there's anything within the presentation that you would like tweaked or as far as how it's presented, please let me know and I'll make whatever provisions necessary so it keeps a clear and fluent process as we move forward.
All right, thanks, Joe. I'll pass that on to John as well as we continue to move forward. Thanks.
There will be information that will need to be added and removed as we move forward. So.
Yep. We will need copies of these, final copies, because we post these on our website. So at the end of the meeting, when you guys are done, if you make any notes or make any changes, or if we asked any clarifying questions that require a change, if you could send those off so we can get those posted to the website.
You got it.
Thanks. Seeing no questions, we'll head to designer update. Gene, or Jen, whomever.
Yeah, I think we're going to do a few things tonight. We're going to start out with, with Jeff talking, and he wanted to go through, we have our engineer with us, which was, we had a meeting, one of the meetings Joe talked about, which is one of these, we call them the technical meetings, but we had it last week. And it was about, we went through with Bob Pacheco there, especially. We went through how the HVAC system was going to operate and how the controls were going to work. And as always, good things came out of that and some tweaks were made. Then we're going to move into Jeff's going to do some stuff with about kind of security, where panic buttons are, which doors are on hold open, stuff like that. Then I thought I'd go through the alternates, which we had sent a package out last Friday. All we really want to do is kind of identify them tonight. We don't really need to rank them. If you know what they are, we can rank them, but we want to identify which ones make sense so we can send them to our cost estimator Friday. And then the last thing we want to do is just kind of finish with a report on the finishes. So with that, I can turn it over to Jeff, and I don't know, I guess Dominic is here from Garcia Gillespie.
Hello, everyone. I would like to go ahead and have Dawn and Sean from Garcia Gillespie de Souza present. Basically, we had, as Gene said, a quite detailed meeting again. And there were some good things that came out. I'm going to allow Dom and Sean to speak to that. But I was wondering if whoever that is, we can allow Dom to take control of the presentation and go through the slideshow.
Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it.
Hello, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, so just following up on Gene and Jeff's intro, this presentation we went over with Mr. Bobby Pacheco, facilities, and some other people in the working group. Went over essentially just wanted to present what people would see within the space for controls. So essentially what we have here is on the right-hand side, a thermostat, but it's actually going to be a multi-function sensor in a number of areas. It'll also show CO2 level and humidity. The thermostat controls a VAV box, which is right below that, essentially a box with a damper, and that's going to control the airflow in order to control your heating, ventilation, and cooling or air conditioning. That same thermostat or temperature sensor will also control the amount of hot water sent to a ceiling mounted radiant panel. So if we need supplemental heating that the air side system cannot provide, which will be the case in the winter heating season, that same sensor controls that. It'll have slide incremental adjustments. The design set points are for heating, 70 degrees plus minus 2, and for cooling, 75 plus minus 2. I'm going to follow up with a couple of slides after this and show the zoning of the rooftop units as well. As I mentioned, it provides a space CO2. We talked a bunch about potentially what we will be doing is putting a sequence in the control sequence of operation to create a quote unquote easy button so that CO2 demand strategy for energy savings could be overridden. And we're recommending that as a mitigation strategy to COVID-19 or any future pandemic or increase in pathogens in the airstream. So that we talked about, that will be coming on the documents. In general, the displacement distribution system for the classrooms lends itself very nicely as a mitigation strategy because all the airflow is introduced low in the space, comes in contact with the occupants. It's going to be nice, clean ventilation air, filtered by MERV 13. Another item we talked about was recommending increasing that to MERV 14, with this being a new building and a rather easy to implement change. But this nicely filtered ventilation air will be coming into contact with the occupants, students, teachers, staff, and then rising up. So contrary to your normal overhead distribution, which mixes the entire room volume, with the displacement system, we're displacing and moving the air upwards, and along with that, removing pollutants rather than mixing them within the space. So highly effective for pollutant removal.
Could I ask a question? This is Mike Dolan.
Yes,
So the MERV 13 with the recommendation to go to 14, what's the standard for schools? I know 13 and 14 is the standard for hospitals, but what's best practice for schools?
13 was right before this, before the COVID pandemic. MERV 13 would be the standard for schools.
For new construction?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Hospitals, they tend to go to HEPA filters in
Okay.
applicable areas. So before HEPA would be, it's typically MERV 13, 14, 16, and then you get into HEPA filters. So MERV 13 was the basis of design. Up to this point, we're recommending going to one step above. That's generally ASHRAE's recommendation for schools. It'd be easy to implement this change with a new design. In existing buildings, even getting the MERV 13 might not be a possibility. Those often are MERV 8 and 10s in a lot of the other existing school systems, HVAC systems.
With the pandemics that's happening and the whole change in our energy efficiency recommendations, are we going to do more transfer of air cycles? And do you recommend, any precautionary measures moving forward that we could protect not only the staff, but the students with the ventilation system?
Well, as I mentioned, the one that we will be creating that programming logic, quote unquote, easy button is a CO2 demand override. So what that will do will allow the maximum amount of ventilation that the system is designed for, which is currently in accordance with the latest ASHRAE recommendations. So they're not recommending any more airflow than we're recommending. So I think we're in good shape there. Just the CO2 demand ventilation, which is an energy saving strategy, basically saying, and they still allow that, and that's in their recommendations as well. They just lowered the CO2 ppm, which kind of was in accordance with our original design. So long answer, the short one would be, I think the design is well suited and in line with the ASHRAE recommendations for airflow. It certainly also would recommend, before construction, the building purge, where we run it all in outdoor air mode for a number of weeks to clear out, any, harmful VOCs, which is pretty standard nowadays. Is there anything else, Joe, that you had a question on? I know it was a kind of long-winded answer. Okay. I'll continue with the displacement diffuser. I mentioned we're supplying ventilation into the space, and then we're exhausting high. The other system I would like to talk about is the VRF, variable refrigerant flow systems. That's at the upper right, and that's within the administration and media center areas. So that's what's doing heating and cooling in those areas. There is supplemental hot water heating in those areas. And then those areas are getting the ventilation from a dedicated outdoor air rooftop unit, which would be 100% outside air. So again, pretty much in line with ASHRAE recommendations, where you've got, 100% outside air to the spaces. This is a map of the building areas and what type of systems and which units serve which areas. So we've got RTU3, which is VRF, and that's in the cyan color. We've got that RTU ventilation air also provides ventilation through a displacement system for the classrooms. RTU 7 and 8 are the gym and CAF. Those are not displacement areas. Those are overhead distribution systems. And although they're not displacement, have a large quantity of outdoor air, all within recommendations per ASHRAE for amounts of outdoor air capability. Moving on to the first floor, RTU1 and RTU3, classroom displacement areas, and just a wider area of the upper area of the gym and CAF. And then RTU5 is the VRF for the administration area. And again, dedicated outdoor air is providing ventilation, space heating and cooling provided by the VRF system, and supplemental hot water, radiation fed by the boiler plant. And then lastly, more classroom areas, RTU2 and RTU4 displacement. And then the media center, library, served by RTU6 and a VRF system. with supplemental hot water heating. So that was another point that it is in the design. Mr. Pacheco really wanted to see that in the design for the supplemental hot water radiation, so that in any event of the VRF failure, these areas would still be heated by the hot water system. That's a summary of, we went through control diagrams on a more technical aspect at the working group meeting. And then the other subject that we covered was talking about some potential supplemental technologies that are gaining interest in the HVAC industry, in addition to increasing filtration effectiveness, adding supplemental technology. I will say a lot of testing is ongoing. There's not definitive tests and effectiveness of these different technologies that have been third-party certified. There's not complete industry standards on them. So you'll see a lot of different information being presented as to which is the best technology, which is the most appropriate. And all I can say is, based upon my research, looking at ASHRAE guidelines, ASHRAE really doesn't do a wholehearted recommendation of any of these technologies, but says, to consider these.
Dominic, could you, I understand some of the, technology that you're speaking of. Could you just let the committee know the UV-C technology, like what it is and what it does?
Sure. I just wanted to give that preface. We're not totally recommending these, Joe, but just want to put it out there in our recommendation of which might be the most appropriate. So UVC is there's 3 bands of UV. And C is the one that's also known as germicidal UV. It's the short wavelengths that will kill pathogens, virus, bacteria, somewhat fungi, but that is what's used. It's generated by, a bulb that has, mercury vapor, and it's generating UV lights. They're typically installed in the air handling units on the supply side, at the cooling coil, or within the supply ductwork, if it cannot fit in the air handling unit. Approximately, again, some studies, nothing third-party lab certified, 90% plus kill rate effectiveness when used with high filter efficiencies. And that during that, you also have to remove your CO2 demand controls or override them. With UVC, there is some standards that must be adhered to, so it's a little bit better than some of the other technologies that might be there. Another one is bipolar ionization has been being mentioned, but I think UVC is a little bit more proven technology.
So Dominic, we're just explaining this. It's not currently going to be included as part of the design, but it's up for discussion, correct?
It's up for discussion, and that we were asked by RDA to mention it.
Right.
And that's what ASHRAE is also recommending.
Yep.
For projects in design, to bring this to the client's attention, go over pros and cons, and again, the owner would make the decision. So what we did here, I just gave an overview of that UVC technology, which would be, out of some of the buzzwords you hear, probably out of all of them, the one we'd probably recommend, because it's likely the easiest to implement and the lowest energy impact. However, the cons, there would be additional maintenance costs. As I mentioned, there's mercury vapor. So any maintenance, you've got to avoid exposure make sure it's completely de-energized. Under normal operation, these would be safe. However, if there was any malfunction, make sure it gets de-energized. And then, be sure that whichever manufacturer, you've got a couple of equivalents that could be bid as equals, because not all are equal. We looked at the costs. It would add approximately 50 cents a square foot for an installed cost. On a yearly basis, about another 15 cents a square foot. The emitters have to be changed every 1, maybe 2 years. And a good thing is that there would be negligible increased energy costs, and based on some studies actually show some energy savings, because as continually cleaning, particularly when it's installed in the air handling unit, if it's cleaning the airstream, it's also cleaning the cooling coil and keeping its efficiency level high. So that would be a pro of the system.
So Dom, this is Gene. What we're doing in, I guess, response to the pandemic at this point is you've upgraded the filters, which means the fan speed's going to be a little bit more, but it's not a big deal. You have an easy, quote unquote, button in the controls so that you can kind of maximize the amount of fresh air. So you're heating and cooling a little more fresh air. So there's some increased operating costs, but you're bringing in more fresh air. And those are kind of going to be built into the project, right? We're going to put those in the documents. And then if the committee wanted to consider, a way to actually kill some of the airborne pathogens that get recycled through the system, this UV technology is probably the best to do. It's not going to kill all of the pathogens, but it will kill a fairly substantial percentage of them. The cost impact is about, I'm going to round, but I think around $75,000 in first costs. And then as Dom said, you'll have to kind of change the bulbs maybe on a yearly basis. And at 15 cents a square foot, I just did a quick calc, it might be around $20,000 a year in maintenance. But if you want to consider this, and let's say that everything goes back to normal a year from now, you don't have to run the system. You can just shut off the electrical to this part and kind of avoid that maintenance cost. So is that kind of a fair summary, Dom?
Yes, Gene.
So, Gene, it's Mike. So are you looking for us to discuss adding this in and voting on it tonight?
Well,
what do you need from us to do here?
I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dom, but this is maybe a fairly simple thing that you could put in after we get, I don't know if it was a couple weeks from now, after we send out the package for 90% estimating, or kind of, Dom, would you need to know tonight or soon if the committee wanted to put this in?
No, we would need to know tonight. But I would say, but definitely by, say when the 90% CD is reconciled. And I think also if it's reconciled, even if it's priced as an alternate, rather than just relying on what we're hearing from manufacturers, if we just, make sure that cost is appropriate.
Dominic, is the system itself have to be spec'd out specifically to accommodate it, or is this a feature that can be added to the system that you're currently designing?
We could design it so that it could be added. It might just need a little bit more room in the air handling units, and that's why I've kind of kept it open to, you know, be potentially rooftop mounted or duct mounted, depending upon the space.
I just don't want to get into a situation where we decide, you know, we're not doing it right now, and then we go to add it, and it's going to be a significant change order. I want to make sure that if the possibilities are to fit it out so that the capacity is there, so, you know, space-wise, then it's an easy add versus trying to do it after the fact.
Yeah, it does impact another trade too. Like, you know, it's not only HVAC, but also electrical and ATC controls.
It might be the kind of thing where we make it an alternate, at least for the purpose of the 90% set, right?
Just to get a number.
All right, to get a number and confirm this, or, you know, right now, a lot of schools have asked us, and, you know, they asked like, hey, can we install this summer? And best of my knowledge right now, it's 8 weeks out for this technology. So it's not really being installed. You know, there might be some schools installing UVC, but, you know, I don't know that it's the high quality type units that we would recommend. You know, you could certainly go on Amazon.com and type in UVC for HVAC, and you might get one suitable for your home and installed in a duct. Is that the most appropriate for this school building? I would say no. The ones that are available and appropriate for this type of school probably have a lead time of about 8 weeks.
So I'd like to open this up for discussion amongst the committee. Gene, I think it makes sense to probably put this as an alternate, but I want the committee to discuss this at a little bit more detail. I am no way. So personally, I don't know if I'm sold on it. If it's a knee-jerk reaction to current circumstances, again, I realize how what the current circumstances we're in, but I would really like to hear from other folks on the committee to see what their thoughts are on this.
And the other and that's, I would not recommend rushing into it. I just thought it was our duty to kind of bring it to the committee's attention, where we also have been hearing the request for this has come from teachers unions. You know, just giving a list of what their recommendations and questioning, and not on this, not this project, but other towns.
Right. Right. As we look at returning to school in the fall, that's the teacher unions are looking at these recommendations and wanting these in. But I'm curious to see if anybody else wants to weigh in. If not, we move on, but I want to give folks the opportunity to weigh in here. Kathy, did you have, Kathy, there you are. Go ahead.
I did. I guess my initial thought, I'm just sort of thinking out loud, I guess, is does it have to be, if we were thinking about this, would it have to go in as an alternative, or could it go in later as a change request? Because I guess I would think if we were interested in this as a town, it would not just be specifically for this school, right? As a district, we would be talking about this kind of technology for the district, not for one school necessarily. So I just wonder if we want it to be sort of tied specifically to the project at this point, or could it later be just added as a change request?
It could be added as a change request. It's just a matter of setting the units up appropriately so that it minimizes the change request when you go to ask for it. So basically what Dom's saying is that you need the space provided and probably some electrical circuits up in that area to be provided during the installation so that you could retrofit it later on. if you don't do that, the costs associated with it would be a little bit more. So, you know, you have to take into consideration, and you have a couple of weeks to, maybe at the next meeting, you guys have time to digest this. I mean, you're getting it presented to you right now, and you need a little time to, you know, kind of absorb it to see the practicality in with it. You know what I mean? My experience is that adding it after and not at least doing the infrastructure is always more money. That's all. But it is possible.
I guess I totally agree with that. But I think, could we understand sort of what's the cost for the infrastructure piece versus the whole thing? Like, can we just get it so that we can see that as well?
Is it possible to break it out that way, Dom?
I think, I would tend to defer to, like I said, the estimators. We're just getting these costs from manufacturers.
Right.
What manufacturers tell an engineer is often different from what they tell project estimators. We could certainly write up a narrative that could get priced, and maybe in that narrative describe it both ways. I would think that as part of a bid, it would be much less costly than to do it after the fact, because even this 50 cents a square foot number, if we're talking about these going into air handling units, these air handling units are, $12 a CFM. And they're going to be competitively bid. And so it's going to be multiple manufacturers bidding rooftop units with this technology under a base bid, versus you've got that and you have the units, and now you're going to add the UV technology, and now you're going to have fewer, less leverage in your buying power. And I would expect a much higher cost, not only for the install, but to buy the product. That's all I would, that's what I would think.
Do you think that because the demand has changed in terms of who's interested in this, that the technology is going to change quickly as well? And so a year from now, when we're actually building, it could be very different?
It could to some degree, but that's why the UVC would be our recommendation versus some of this other technology, because it has been used quite often in the same application in hospital environments, operating rooms. So there's always improvements in technology that would go for other, HVAC, MEP, electrical systems as well. There might be some changes, but I don't see a whole lot of change in the UVC technology. Some of the other ones I think might be like the bipolar ionization. Right now there's some proprietary manufacturers that are much better, and everyone's seems to be less efficient. That's why we're not recommending that one. But the UVC, I think, would be the most constant of these alternative technologies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we can, and other people are more than welcome to speak, but what I know we'll do is Dom will put together a narrative for the infrastructure part of this, and then he'll put together a narrative for the whole install, and we'll ask the estimators to kind of estimate both.
Mike, can I ask a quick question to Gene?
Yeah, go.
So I thought what Gene said earlier on was a great suggestion, and maybe I misunderstood him, but this seems to be a great alternate, right? So is that an easy thing to do, Gene, is to make it an alternate, or do you have to basically change the whole? If this is something that can just be added, why wouldn't we just price it as an alternate? And if we had the budget to do it, we could consider it as an alternate.
Yeah, we could put either the infrastructure or the whole thing as an alternate. But I
Two
think
different designs though, Gene. That's the only thing that I'm looking at. I mean, I think there's interior components that are required you know, that are going to be needed for each unit during the purchasing and procurement of it to allow the capacity of putting that in place. So you're paying for it in your upfront costs when you're buying the units, even if you don't add it. That's all I'm trying to say. So
Oh, good point. Yeah.
You know, Dominic is going to have to, and his team is going to have to size the unit appropriately and have the electrical and mechanical capabilities to be able to have this installed. As Dominic was indicating earlier, to do it after the fact, it's a lot more, it's not going to be 50 cents a square foot, I can tell you that much.
I mean, if this potentially could be the new norm, I think that would be crazy not to price it out.
Right. I think we price it with the 90% estimates and then, you know, react to it once we get the numbers, because it may price it right out of the market when we're not even able to even look at this thing right now. You know, we don't know yet. So the direction, I guess, Mike, would be, you know, write it up as a spec just to see what the cost implications are for the design portion of it, adding that, and see where the estimates come in at as an alternate.
Yes, I think that makes sense to go forward with.
That would be my recommendation as well.
Okay. Thank you, Dominic.
You're welcome. Thank you all for your time. So let me present that.
So I just wanted the committee, Mike, to know that there is a temperature. Each room will have the ability to adjust the temperature within the space, but it's only going to be a 4-degree swing one way or the other.
Yes, I think we heard that earlier when Dominic was here. It feels like ages ago, Dominic, sorry, but it was probably at the beginning of this year.
I mean, you may get some teachers that want it at 65 and some teachers want it at 78. You won't have that capacity, you know?
Right.
And the other thing that Dominic was going to put in was that override button down for the public areas. So if a group comes in to play sports in the gym, you know, on a weekend, they can hit a button, and for 4 hours the temperature will come up, but they don't have to remember to put it back down. It'll just drop back down after they leave.
Yep, that's already been in the documents, that function. I think what we talked about with Bobby Pacheco was just changing the duration from 3 hours to 4 hours, but it would be an adjustable set point.
Right.
Yeah. So I think you guys have a great system. You already started out with the best system for air quality when you picked this displacement air system. And even the base design is making it better than it was. And then you have the alternate to even upgrade it one more notch. But you're starting with the best system as far as getting the pollutants out of the room, even if you didn't do any of the upgrades. So unless there's anything else, I would just thank Dom and let him go. But
that works if nobody else has any questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Dom.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye now.
So Jeff, did you want to go quickly through some of the security stuff, or?
Sure. We met with a working meeting with Derek was there for a portion of it, a little bit of it. Bob Chica was there, Dennis was there, and we reviewed security, but also hardware controls, and this, you know, I'm being cautious not to get into the weeds on this. In the sense of, you know, I always remember John telling me stay out of the drains, you know, so I will say that. But the pages I'm going to show you very quickly is it deals with how the school is going to function, and that I want to highlight this, and we added a few things from our last, we had this meeting a while back, and then we brought Dennis back in, and we had multiple meetings with Dennis, understanding what really is needed as they do certain things. And so,
Hey, Jeff, you think you're sharing your screen?
you know what? I need to share my screen, and that's my fault.
No problem. I could see you're going to go on a roll and be talking about stuff we couldn't see. I can see your, yep.
You see the screen now?
Yep.
Do you see the plans?
Yep. Ground floor.
Okay, great, great. Something's weird. It doesn't have the green thing around it, but that's good. Well, it works so everyone sees it. So there's some 14 slides. And what they do is for example, here, I'm going to zoom in. So maybe it's a little bit easier to read, is the areas that have this elliptical circle show door contacts or door hold opens. And basically what they do is during the regular school hours, these doors you can push open and they stay open. And they will close under two scenarios, whether it could be a panic button push or a fire alarm. But the idea was that they didn't want to have to hold these doors for the students as they maybe came into the cafeteria, which is and where all the tables are shown, or into the gymnasium. They wanted to be able to hold them open. And then, but they wanted also, Dennis asked the question, can we shut them without, and pull them shut? And I said, of course, it's just a magnet that holds it, and you can just pull the door shut after the students are in. And then you can open it back up at the end of class and allow the students to go to their next class. So in this area, what we have identified is all the stairs will be on hold opens. The doors into the cafeteria and then also into the gym. We did both sets because there is a divider that for the separate gym classes, that was a requirement through the PE department, that they wanted to have basically a divider there that had some level of acoustical properties. So that was what was shown on the ground level. The next page, we just started identifying that the stairs all the way up have these hold opens. So the students, when they're going from one classroom to the cafeteria, they don't have to maneuver these large doors, that they're on hold open in that area. This is
Can I ask you a question? Do
Sure.
they fail safe upon a fire?
Say that one more time.
Do they fail safe? Like if a fire alarm is pulled, they fail safe?
Yeah, they close. Yes, Joe.
Okay.
They all close. They're all tied to the fire alarm, but also what I would call the panic button. And
Yep.
in the sheets going forward will identify that. Again, it's just showing the specific locations of the stairs. So this stairway at the ground level, the first floor and the second floor, the doors are on a hold open. This is part A. This is going into part B. And this is to identify, this is the lobby that's right here from the main entrance. And then you know how you have a corridor to the right and a corridor to the left. These doors are on hold opens. And so it allows the students to travel to their classrooms as they come in, instead of having to hold the doors open. All right. These are all tied in, these hold opens are tied up into the closers for the most part. Some are wall magnets, but most of them are within the closers. Really nothing at this level, at the second floor of B. And then we have them, the hold opens at the stair. This is the area C. This is where the pre-K is, and there's a set of doors right there. that are held open. Same thing on the second floor. The next set of drawings basically tied to the areas that are circled in blue are what I would call a somewhat of a panic button, that they're identified at the ground level, that if one of these were to be hit, basically all the doors shut. This is a different set of drawings. These are more of the security drawings. With that, I'm sorry, I'm jumping up. Let me get back to that. The other thing that's identified here is we both have internal and external card readers due to the functions of what, of what the school is doing. We've met with the facilities, we've met with the kitchen, and we've met with the educational staff to understand what is needed. And so in green are the card readers at those locations. And some are internal, like there's a card reader to the IT closets. There's internal card readers because this becomes an after hours area. And so basically there's a card reader to go up the stairs. So it is restricted for after hours use, as is at this area right here, the after hours use and after hours use for the elevator. And so it sort of restricts the after hours use to just the cafeteria, stage, and gymnasium. But also, again, as I talked to you about, like the kitchen has a card reader, so because a lot of their deliveries come in that way, a good majority of them. All right. Going up a level. Really no card readers here except at the stairs. So if someone were able to get in after hours, they would need a card reader to get into the upper levels. Or a fob. Here's a little blow up. We've identified a few areas. Again, the stairs. There's a data room that we've, basically all data rooms will have a card reader. The elevator that's over here in the left will have a card reader. And then we'll have card readers onto the plaza so that, when the doors are shut, students just couldn't go out there and open it up. It has to be done by a teacher or staff to open that area for them to go onto that little teaching plaza off the
As
yard.
far as the lockdown, has that all been into consideration as far as what doors will be egress only in the morning and then how the school gets locked down in a situation?
It has, in the sense that it's tied to a building management for a system for entry. Basically all the doors are locked down all the time, Joe, and on the perimeter. And access to the perimeter is through the card reader.
Jeff, Jeff.
For the edge, sorry, Mike.
Sorry, I'm a little concerned we're giving too much information out potentially about
Sure.
about the security systems. So I don't want to stop the conversation, but I want to
limit it. Yep.
Okay, so basically,
well, I want to, if I could, ask Mike Dutton. Mr. Dutton, are you on? Are you still?
Yep, I am here, Michael.
So if I could ask you, would it be appropriate at this time, if we want to continue this conversation specifically about the security systems, that we go into executive session?
That would be a possibility. I would recommend that if there's an executive session on the agenda at the end, that we defer this conversation until the end and then go into executive session. If there is no executive session on the agenda, then I might recommend picking up this conversation, if it's not too late, pick it up on the 17th.
Yeah, I think that's adequate.
Okay.
So if I could make that request, I just, again, out of the abundance of caution, not to overshare some of the things that that are being discussed, and so I'll make sure. And if you wouldn't mind making a note for Josh to have an executive session on our agenda for the 17th, so we can deep dive into this.
And
Not
I
a problem.
apologize, Michael. I was just trying to make sure that we had it incorporated in the design, that the
Yeah.
capacity was there, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's all right, Joe. I appreciate the question. I think it's a good one. I just, as Jeff was talking, I was getting more and more uneasy about. I was like, I think we may need to stop now.
So with that, Mike, this document should be held to executive session and shall not be published.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan.
Yep.
All right. So with that being said, I'm just going to back out of that document altogether and close it out.
Thank you.
Jeff, you did it again. You went into the drains. Man, I don't know.
No, it's stuff. It's stuff we have to talk about and discuss. It's just.
I'm just teasing him, Mike. Totally get it. Totally get it. Do you want me to flip over to? I
think it's important. There's also, and it's something that Gene's going to tie into when we go into the alternates. There is that we not only include this set of drawings, but also the safety glazing around the perimeter. And that should be included in that executive session.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we're still going to price it out, but we can just kind of pass over that as a discussion. It's not going to slow us up from pricing it up.
No.
So.
Thank you.
And it's in the budget right now also. So I just want everyone to know that. Do you want me to share my screen? And I don't know how that's supposed to work, but I'll try. And the host has disabled participant screen sharing is the note that comes up.
Yep. You are all set, Ann. Thanks so much again. Ann's made you a co-host, Gene, so you should be able to
Fabulous.
share now.
All right. So can you see our wonderful title sheet?
Yes.
Okay. So we have two subjects that I'll try to go through fairly briskly. The first is alternates, and the second is the interiors. I'll end on the high note. So as I've said to a few people during the process, everything that we're considering as an add alternate is in the budget right now. And our budget is tracking under the control number that was set by MSBA. So the only reason we're doing this is in the unlikely event that when the bids are opened, they come in higher than we all expect. And instead of throwing out the bids, which is what you'd have to do if you didn't have enough money, or dipping into your contingency, which maybe you don't want to do, we thought we'd try to take some stuff out of what we're calling the base bid package. Therefore, the bids should come in lower. And when the bids come in lower, we can add this scope back in. So we're just trying to do this as kind of an insurance, belt and suspenders issue or strategy. And RDA and some other people had, tossed around some ideas of what could we pull out of the package right now put something less expensive in, and then we could put it back in, assuming the bids come in where we think. And so we had 12 items, and we had sent this out last Friday. So if anyone needs to see it in a larger scale, perhaps you can pull up your email from last Friday. But we thought that we'd look at a couple of options on the glass around the building, which we can go through at the next meeting. Then we looked at 3 options for playgrounds, and what I'll do is kind of flip. This is the end of the. Can you see my cursor scrolling around?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this is the pre-K wing, the end of the wing, and the pre-K has its own playground, which is enclosed in this fenced-in area. And we had kind of what we were calling the main playground. And then during design, we put some of the equipment over to the side and put a trike track around it. And so at one point we were thinking, oh, this is very easy to carve off as an alternate. And we could, again, lower that base bid price and add it back in. The same thing we were thinking out on the play field near the senior center. We had what we were calling the south playground and the north playground. And we thought on the south that we could look at maybe just putting a new rubber base, but reusing the existing equipment instead of doing new equipment. And I'm going to tell you right now, I put a big X through it, and this is kind of shame on us. But when we were talking to our landscape architect, they said, this road that you're putting through to the senior center is wider than what's there, and we have to relocate this. So you're going to have to put a new rubber base somewhere, but when we relocate equipment, then it has to be not only moved, but it has to be recertified. And their advice was that we just put the new base and put new equipment because the process of recertifying and moving it is going to be just as expensive as buying new. So we kind of thought that this one, maybe we don't even mess around. We just leave it the way it was or it currently is. And up on the north playground, we said, really, the only thing we could do is not build it. So, because it was a new, well, anyway, the only thing we could do, we were already reusing the existing equipment and putting a new rubber base on it, or play area. So we thought the only alternate would be to just take it out of the scope and then put it back into the scope. Long story short, and I know that wasn't short, what we have subsequently thought is it really doesn't make sense to take that playground out or to even take this out, because that starts to impact the educational program. You have 8 pre-K classrooms, which is quite a bit, and it's probably going to require spreading kids out. And then you've got 740 other kids, 250 kids at recess, and you probably are going to be well served to have all these different play areas. That's just our opinion, but I'll just leave it at that. And Mike, I can roll through all of them and then we can kind of talk, or we can kind of pause each time. It might be good. It might be good to roll through so people can put things in perspective.
Right. And then sort of put in perspective where they think something should go on a list.
Yeah.
What order?
Yep. So the next thing that we looked at was the curbing on the project. You got a sidewalk and then you got a curb, that's 6 or 8 inches high. And there's what is currently in the bid package or in the estimate is everywhere you see either a yellow line around an island or a sidewalk or the parking lot or a purple line, everything in there right now is granite curbing, which is very durable and very expensive. So we confirmed with the town engineer that in the right of way, like in a public road, like this driveway over by the senior center where we're adding curbing, it has to be vertical granite curbs, you know, just like straight up and down vertical. And if we were doing a subdivision road or something, it would have to be that. But within a site, you can do just take the asphalt and kind of berm it up on the edge, and it's a lot less expensive. And so what we thought was it would be appropriate to have the nice curbing around the perimeter of the building, in the front parking lot, but that you could look at just going to this asphalt berm everywhere else, and its value is about $185,000, we think. So, and the other thing I wanted to say is when we went through this with Bob Pacheco, he was like, "Huh, I would love that," because it's so much easier to plow when there's no granite, and you can just kind of push the snow up on the asphalt berm. So when we will price it as this, so you can get a sense, but it may not be worth doing it as an alternate. We might just put it out to bid and say, do the granite curb where we show it and do the berm. And then we know right there, the bid estimate should come down, you know, a good chunk, maybe $185,000. The next thing we looked at were the screens. These screens, which you see here in the upper right, you see these rectangles, and even when you're down kind of approaching the building, you can see these rectangles. What they're doing is providing a visual screen for what I'll say is ugly, you know, kind of mechanical equipment up on the roof. All those zones that Dom was talking about, there's 6 or 7 units up on the roof, big gray, green boxes, whatever they are. So they're shown here on the plan, and they kind of run in both wings. And what we used to have with this yellow line is this shows where the screening would be, which are these, you know, walls, essentially metal walls. We used to have those as acoustic screening because we were concerned about the noise impacting neighbors. Jeff had our acoustical engineer look at where the neighbors are compared to these machines, look at how much sound the machines produce, and a real no-brainer right away is we don't need these for acoustic reasons. We just really need them for visual screening. So right away, by reducing them from acoustic rated to visual, we can save a good deal of money, maybe like another $140,000, and still have the visual screening. And then we could, and that also on the back of the building, we don't really need visual screening. It would be nice. But so if we converted the yellow to visual and eliminated the back, we could save about 145. And then if we wanted to add this back in as an alternate, that might cost you about 60,000. So this like the curbing is kind of a no-brainer. You know, we're going to make them visual, and you're going to put some money in your pocket. And then the other one is that in this lobby, this is where the parents are all going to come in at the end of the day and check out their kids. And there's hundreds of parents that'll do that every day. So we've talked about maybe instead of making the lobby floor the rubber tile like everywhere else, making this terrazzo, which is literally little chunks of stone and extremely durable and easy to maintain. So this is about $100,000 add if you were to turn it from rubber to terrazzo. So that might be something you do, you know, if the bids come in low, that might be an attractive alternate. And then I think that's it. Kind of going back to the list of 12. I didn't show it because we haven't defined it, but landscaping, We currently have $375,000 in the budget. And even if we kept 3/4 of that, we could reduce the landscaping budget by $93,000.
Landscape architects typically overplant in the first place, and we end up having, the district tearing out plants after 2 or 3 years because they're overgrown one another. I mean, I think that would be a good one just to look at and maybe even identify prior to bidding and try to reduce the scope right out of the box.
Yeah, we might do that. So, something like that might be enough to, cover your costs for some of this air quality stuff, or just, reduce the cost of the building. Electric vehicle charging. Currently, we have 4 charging stations for electrical vehicles, and I think NGrid is helping to pay for some of those. We have about $50,000 in the budget. We can just leave it that way, or if you wanted to add 3 more throughout the site, it might cost $37,000. And the benefit to the town is you get another lead point. Your building's a little more green, quote unquote. But I do want to say that it's not, you don't need the lead points. If you just left our lead scorecard the way it is, you have more than enough to get your 2% reimbursement. So that's definitely a kind of, might be nice to have, but don't need to have. Then flooring, I think I confused people based on some of the feedback I got, which was currently in the base bid, we have rubber tile throughout the school, and Bob Pacheco's great with this. And the nice thing about rubber tile is it's very durable, but all you have to do is wash it with soap and water. If we were desperate for money, if we were over budget, we could change the rubber tile to vinyl tile, and we could say, oh boy, the cost comes down $230,000. And we could do it, but we don't recommend it, because with vinyl tile, at least once a year, you have to chemically strip off the wax and then re-wax it. And so it's going to add more maintenance costs year after year. It's less green because of all the chemicals you're using. And then I don't know how the district plans to use the building, but it's fully air conditioned. And let's say you want to run programs in there all summer long. You'd have to work around various areas where people are stripping and cleaning and re-waxing. Then the last thing was the enhanced air filtering, and that's just strictly an ad. That's what we talked about earlier. So we kind of had it plugged in there for about $75,000. But as Dom said, that's based on manufacturers giving him a rule of thumb. So we'll get some real costs from the cost estimators. So that's kind of all the things we've explored. We have 12. I don't think we need any more than 5 or 6 of these as alternates. Maybe you don't even deal with the playgrounds. Maybe you don't even deal with the curbing. Maybe you don't deal with the VCT flooring. So I guess we'd like to hear if you guys had some thoughts on what your priorities might be. And then eventually we'll get them priced, and then we can rank them, get a sense tonight, but we can do the final ranking anytime before it goes out to bid.
Kathy, is that a new hand raise?
It is.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a carryover from earlier. Go for it.
Oh, I'm trying to lower.
No, it's all right. Lil. Whoop.
I'll wait my turn.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Because Lil disappeared.
I thought you were lowering your hand. I know, I don't know where I went. Yeah.
The volume's down.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
So I guess I was a little confused when I saw the new list, because I thought at the last meeting when we were talking about this, that Shane's recommendation was that the alternatives list equals 1 to 2% of the Form 3011 construction budget. And that he said we shouldn't be considering that the CD 60 came in lower because we don't know if that's going to carry to the CD 90 or the full budget. So I was expecting to see something sort of that reflected that, and I don't see it. So I'm not sure what numbers we're trying to target, because this all seems to be still taking in that sort of CD 60 savings, which he recommended we shouldn't do that at the last meeting.
Well, you can pick what number you want to target, and Joe or might have some thoughts on it. Right now, what MSBA has as your budget is 64.6 million. I'm going to round. The CD 60 estimate was 63.1. So we're already 2.35% below, what's in your scope and budget agreement with MSBA.
Based on the 60% estimate.
Correct.
Just to be
Correct.
clear on that.
And then if we went through and I just cherry picked, the ones I thought made sense, we'd pick up another 558,000, and we'd be about 3.21% below the CD 60, or no, below the project scope and budget.
But if we just looked at that 500 and something compared to the original as Shane had recommended, then we're not even 1%. I guess that's my concern. And I don't know if I heard it wrong, but that's what I thought I heard him say last time was we should be looking at whatever we're proposing against that original Form 3011 budget.
Right. So if we took these alternates and made them alternate, we'd be reducing our construction estimate to 62.6 instead of 63.1, if that makes sense. Go ahead.
I guess I'm trying to, I'm not saying it correctly, but I would like us to be talking in terms of what's the percentage off of the Form 3011 and kind of ignoring that CD 60 estimate unless the recommendation has changed, because that's what I think Shane said last time.
Oh, well, that's easy then, because these percentages are the amount below the Form 3011. So
yeah, she's saying, Gene, to use the 64,679, 981 without savings, just in case 90% comes back and we're at that number. Then what alternates? What would we choose to have reductions on that if we were net zero, basically?
Which, did anybody else want to jump in? I think that's what we heard last time.
No, you're right. And I
guess we'd be looking for somewhere between 650,000, say, and 1.3 to get to that 1 to 2%.
Based on the 3011 amount of money. That's what.
Right, which is what your recommendation is, correct?
Right. So Gene, what she's basically saying is based on your estimate at 60% was 63. Our 3011 budget was 64,679, 981. So any of these alternates, as we move forward, and we don't have the 90% cost to actually, speak or articulate against it. So we only can go off of the 3011. I think you would take these alternates with the hope that it would reduce the 64,679, 981 down, and then the estimates come in favorable, and it's a win-win overall. Okay?
Yeah, we can.
But it's a safety if that CD 60 number was too low, right? I think that's what Shane was trying to say last time.
Well, I think Gene kind of adjusted it because he took the 2.35% off of the 64,679. I think Gene, he just referred to the 63 as the set number. The number that we need to go by is the 64,679, 981 that Shane indicated. That's the number that we're actually embedded with the MSBA. So, you know what I mean? So the 63 is a number, it's an estimated number, Gene, is what basically Shane was indicating. And the 64 is the number we should live and die by right now, because that's what we submitted on and made a commitment to.
Okay. So we may so I understand, we may not need to solve it tonight because we're going to get prices for all these alternates. And then I guess we could rank things based on estimated numbers and try to come in, what do we say, 2 or 3% lower than the 64.9?
2.5% is usual. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a point well taken. But if you were, yeah. So until we get the CD 90 estimate, all we can live with is the numbers that we have for the CD 60.
Because your design has evolved. That's the problem that, you know, Shane was indicating. As you lose your design contingency, your cost of the building gets more. You get more information, so you can cost it out appropriately.
Right.
Your 60% may have changed now, and your savings may not be as much. So base it off of that. It's tough until you get some hard numbers. That's all.
Yep, that's fine. Just so everyone knows, there was design contingency left into, you know, included in that CD 60 number.
Right. Yep.
So we probably used some, but to Joe's point, you know, how much have we used? So.
So at what point do we have to, like, do we have to say these are the alternatives and we're sort of locking this in and voting on it?
I would think, Joe, we need, 3 weeks to get reconciled, and if the next meeting's a month from now, we could present that and have a serious
Absolutely.
discussion about it, you know?
It's 2.5 weeks to basically get the estimates probably in each other's hands to look at a day or two, reconcile, and numbers follow through within a couple of days. So.
And then we could come back to the committee with the current estimate and talk about trying to get 2.5% below the 64.6. Does that sound reasonable?
So Gene, for the 90%, you're going to keep all 12 of these in as alternates just to see what they look like, and then we'll vote if we want to keep them in or not keep them in.
Yeah, we could. That's pretty easy to do. They're pretty easy to do. Yeah. Yep.
That's ideal, Pat.
I think at this point, keeping all 12 in are good. Just that way we have options.
Great.
Well,
I guess we don't know, do we need to even add some, because that's not the 913, even if we had them all, isn't the 2.5%. It's not 2%.
Well, all of them add up. Give me a sec. All of them add up. If they were all taken, we would be at 62,228. So that's about almost 4%. It's 3.8.
That's off of the 63, though.
No, that 3.8 is off of the 64.6.
Okay, because on that column E, F, and G, it shows 60% estimate at 63,162, 511 minus the 933. I thought that's how you came up with it.
Yeah, we were just comparing this number, Joe, the 62, which is, you know, to the 64.6.
Okay.
I can't have two conversations. So we'll price them all out. We'll regroup. But if people have questions on them, because now you have a month to kind of think about what's important to you, and when we come back, hopefully it's easier to kind of make some decisions.
Lil, did you have something?
Is once he comes back with them, and I think
You may have to get closer, Lil.
Yeah.
Okay. How's that?
Not good.
Is that better?
No, you may need to turn your camera off. I know that happens sometimes to you.
Oh, really? How's that?
That's better.
Okay. Good news. No, I think once we get those prices, then it will be easier to go through and order them and say which ones, you know, to put in the bid and which one should be the add alternates.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments on the add alternates? All right, seeing none.
Good.
You're up with updates on finishes.
All right. So we're about an hour. Oh, let me show you this slide. Where there was a comment at the last meeting about having a street sign, and the point was well taken. So our landscape architect has something that replicates what you had before. It's a little bit bigger, not much, but their thought was that we run some power and we actually put an electronic kind of message board, which I think would be really cool. We all love the sign that you had, so we just kind of, like I said, went with it. And you know, we'll just decide if it's better off here on South Street or maybe on the island. But I wanted people to know that we heard that, and that this is going to be part of the estimate that's coming up, unless anyone has any objections. So.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think the first sign is going to say how great everyone on this committee is, you know. So the interiors, like I say, we've had great, it's really been a great process with this group. And so I think Lisa and Lil and Dennis and Bob Pacheco, you know, really deserve some credit because, you know, it's been a few hours worth of work. This you've seen this slide a million times. I'm just refreshing people. On the first floor, we have the lobby, and then we have kindergarten and we have pre-K. And the idea is to kind of pick up on some colors from nature and make every grade level have a different color. There's also, you're going to see there's going to be some neutral areas, right, where anyone can go, like special ed or art or music. So, you know, second grade, these aren't necessarily the colors, but it gives you an idea. Like each grade level has a strong identity. And then the areas that aren't colored in are going to be kind of open to anybody. So we're kind of treating those a little bit differently. And the community wing, as we're calling it, down on the lower level, it has the neutral area, which is music. But between the lower level here and then the two levels here, the 2 grades here and the 2 grades here, we needed to identify 5 different colors to you know, highlight what part of the building you're in. And so we've done that. And this is an old picture, but it tells the story. You know, we have these vertical connections, and what we've done is we're going to have a strong color on the second floor and a different color on the first, and on the community a different color. And we're going to, when you're in these floor opening areas, they're going to be knit together with this nice kind of natural acoustic screen, but you're going to get the sense of the whole community. You know, you're not just going to be looking at your green corridor or your yellow corridor. You're going to see the whole school community. So, you know, I think that's a really cool thing also. So what we did here, Christine and Angela and Steve and myself, we started out with getting samples of rubber floor tiles. And we decided that we would try to find pairs, and we'd try to find 5 pairs. This one looks black, but it's really deep purple. It just doesn't show up well. So kind of a purple, a blue, a yellow, orange, a green, and maybe a burgundy of some sort. There'll be other areas where the rubber tiles are kind of a more neutral color, but those were the 5, you know, at this point, the 5 kind of colors that we thought were the I don't know, most appropriate. We've always started looking at the corridors first, and this is a little different than what we showed you last time. Last time we had kind of a bit of color and then a neutral, and a bit of color and a neutral. And we looked at 2 options with the Interiors Committee, and I think we all agreed that if we just if this is the yellow corridor, everything is yellow. It's just a very strong identity. There's kind of like this orange was paired with the yellow. So we have this orange stripe down one side. And we also looked at, we had kind of gotten away from the idea of the leaves, but we figured out that they're not that expensive and they can be dealt with from a maintenance and replacement standpoint. Christine spent a lot of time with the product reps on this, and we were getting away from having some of those literal images. Again, remembering these are small kids, so you know, we can have all these abstract ideas about how vertical things are trees and et cetera, but we were losing track of the literal. So we're suggesting in these floor openings that we embed some of these leaf patterns. And so let's say you're here in the kindergarten wing. So we'd have the light yellow as the major color, and we'd have these accents that are in kind of a little more of a highlight. And I don't know if these will be the colors, but you know, over in the pre-K, we could be working with the burgundy range, but it's the same idea. We have kind of a light color as the major neutral, and then we just have these pops that happen at various places. And then keeping with the literal theme, where we have this bridge crossing at the second floor. You know, we're really have been fixated, and I apologize, but on the idea of having these concentric circles, as if, you know, someone dropped a stone into the water and you know, it just kind of rings out. The areas that the transition kind of between this and the grade level, we're treating with some blue from the lobby, and kind of making it so that the rhythm is getting a little tighter and tighter. And the reason we're doing that is kind of, this area here is kind of neutral territory, because it's where everyone goes down to the cafeteria and back, or maybe up to the second floor. So we carry some blue in here, but we wanted to, also, we have kindergarten rooms in this area, so we wanted to have some yellow. So we went blue, yellow, and then we brought the grade level stripe out here. And then over on this side, before you get to the pre-K corridor, this is neutral territory too. So we brought the blues into here, because any grade level could go to OT, PT, or adaptive PE, or any grade level could go to the nurse or the administrative area. So we had done this study. These are all 3 foot by 3 foot squares, which is the size of rubber tile. And it was funny, we looked at leaf patterns that would fit within 1 tile, and leaf patterns that would get cut into 2 tiles, and leaf patterns that would get cut into 4 tiles. And we sent it off to the product rep, and maybe because it's fewer leaves when it's, you know, the same size area, but the price per square foot for what we really wanted to do was kind of the least expensive of the various leaf patterns. And, you know, so these large leaves are what we're showing here. And Dennis had a question this morning. He said, boy, wouldn't it be better if, you know, you had to replace a tile, it was just 1 tile? And we said, well, the size of these spaces, you really need something a little bit bigger. If this was just a scattering of little leaves, it would look like a bunch of dots on the floor, and you might not notice, you know, what it is. And the other thing, from a maintenance standpoint, kind of the worst case, if you didn't want to pay to, first of all, the chances of these things getting damaged are next to nothing. Famous last words, but you know, we'd gone through a bunch of schools at the beginning of the process. That school up in Concord, New Hampshire, was all rubber tile. And you know, there was no damage. But worst case, if one of these got damaged and you had to replace it, you could just pop these 4 tiles, and you wouldn't even have to put a leaf in if you didn't want. You could just get 4 of the neutral color tiles and pop it in there. So I think that you should take the chance on this. And I say chance, you know, and I really shouldn't. I think you should implement this, and I don't think it's going to be a a maintenance catastrophe. Even if one gets damaged, they're very easy to pop up the tiles and just replace them. So up on the second floor, we have kind of the same blue stripes emanating from the lobby until you get into the what's the second grade level, and maybe this is, you know, the purple or the violet area. The bridge, we haven't colored it brown, but we're thinking of making this with ceramic porcelain tiles that are actually 8 inches wide by 40 inches long, and they look literally like wood, and they're made to be walked on. So we were thinking of making this bridge again, literal, you know, trying to be literal, you know, with a bunch of wood planks on it. And when we're up in the first grade level, you know, maybe this is the green level. When we get into the library or some of these common spaces, we kind of want to bring all the colors together, you know, so the first grade's in here, the pre-K colors in here, et cetera, et cetera. So we looked at this space, which is the library, and this space, which is a computer lab. It's a computer lab, but we looked at taking this and having different colored carpet, maybe some sort of line that starts to regulate it, and then getting back to the idea of being literal. We kind of have some light fixtures we're looking at that are almost like those rings down on the floor in the lobby. We have some bleachers that are, you know, half a quarter round shape. And you'll see in the rendering, we actually have kind of a synthetic tree that we thought would be pretty cool to have in here. But again, the idea is the whole school comes together, you know, in the library. Every grade level is going to be in there. And when you go to the Maker Lab or the 2 art rooms, we'll come up with some sort of floor pattern that, again, makes use of all the colors from the various grade levels, because, you know, any grade level could go to art, you know, for instance. So this will go to the estimator, and that's why we're doing this, because, you know, they have to say, oh, there's a lot of cuts here, a lot of different colors, it's going to cost X, Y, Z. Just to explain, these things here are the book stacks. So those are not patterns in the floor. Those are the tops on the book stacks. And that's not a pattern in the floor. Those are actually bleachers. So what we're looking at is not only in the floor, but maybe some of the tops on bookcases, that we have some colors out of plastic laminate or solid surface. We might even, these end panels, actually all this stuff here would be bought out as part of the furnishings. So we don't really have to worry too much about it, but we're just trying to get our heads wrapped around the theme. And so we thought maybe some of the end panels might have, you know, some tree silhouettes, not all of them, but a few. Again, trying to be a little more literal. And then this is looking into the story nook. It's actually a pretty big bay, but we could have bookcases that are on these shapes, these round, half round shapes. And then on the, then this
Gene,
is
I think
that.
you froze. Or is it me?
I don't know. Can people see me moving the slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mike, are you okay? Can you see the slides change?
Yep. I don't know if that was on my end or your end, Gene. Sorry.
But you're good?
Yep.
Okay. So anyway, so this is that, you know, we thought, again, kind of being literal in this story nook, you know, the back, this side is a bookcase, but this is bleachers, and maybe they're, you know, colored to represent some of the grade levels. But we have this tree, and then these are kind of those, you know, we'll find some sort of linear light fixture. But that's a picture, oops, sorry, of, you know, literally what that tree, you know, could be. This one happens to be made in Sweden, but it's available. And so, you know, the thought is, again, to be literal. And I think this went over really well with the teachers. So that was kind of the direction. We have some different ceiling materials in the reading alcove. You know, we'll have a kind of metal a metal linear ceiling, but it'll look just like wood. They just have.
When you do that design, can you just make sure that you have black matting behind the corrugated roof? The acoustical ceiling contractor installed those, and a lot of times, during design process, they scope the wood ceiling, but they don't put the black backing on it so that you can't see through the slats. It makes a significant difference.
Oh, okay. All right. We usually paint everything above flat black, but it sounds like there's something else we could be doing, Joe.
Yeah, there's a material that actually gets placed, on the grid itself before the wood goes up, and it significantly stops the dust from filtering down through the cracks. And
oh, okay.
Joe, what we're doing there actually is we're providing acoustical bats that actually fit within those slats, so that's going to reduce a lot of what you're
perfect. And acoustically, it makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Ability to do that.
So, and I'll keep going, but we can come back to any of this. The other big kind of common area everyone's going to be in every day is the cafetorium. And if you kind of zoom out here, again, we're thinking about this would be rubber tile, right, based on its use, but kind of picking up on the same idea where we're picking colors from the various grade levels, and we have some regulating lines. All these things you're looking at here are tables with little stools attached. And then
Gene, I got one question on the tables with everything that's going on. I want you to check with, the manufacturers of those tables to see what kind of screening that they're doing now, as far as whether it's a plexiglass separation between, you know what I mean? And you want to make sure that they have the capability being added to it, because if we need something of that nature to allow the population to eat during a lunch period, we want to make sure that everyone's protected during it.
Nice idea. One of the nice things is, and we will follow up with that, Joe, but this is showing as if half the school is eating at once, because that's what MSBA requires. And right away, you're going to have about a third of the school eating. So we can spread out, which is nice, but we'll follow up on the plexiglass too. And then you can see we have down on this common corridor, we have one color, but the idea of maybe putting the accent colors from various grade levels. And the art or the music rooms would be kind of like the art and maker space, where we try to come up with some pattern that has all the grade levels in it. So this is there's a lot of stuff going on here, but if you imagine all these tables not being here, it's a pretty serene space, believe it or not. We'd have a wall tile that's a nice, neutral taupe color. The light fixtures here we could band with the various class colors if we so choose. And the acoustic panels, we can do the same thing. We can integrate some of the grade level colors into them. All the furniture, we're probably about, 8-9 months away from starting to talk about furniture. This all gets procured out of a separate budget, so it's not anything that's going to get estimated this week. This is a view toward the corridor, and again, there's the windows that you can look down into it from the first grade level. We have the see-through stage, and all this stuff here, all this linear stuff is acoustic materials. And then this is looking at the same corridor, but back toward the kitchen. So we wanted to do a few views just to give you a sense that, some of these spaces, all the colors come together because they're community spaces. And that's kind of where we ended up. And I think everyone was excited, very excited about it. I know we are. So happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments on the design?
I love it.
Keep coming. Come on.
I think it's great.
Looks
I
great.
really like how each area has their own identity, but then all the kids belong in the common areas with all those colors. I think it really sets up nice. I like the way the leaves look like they just dropped from the sky on those open areas. I really like the way that came out. I think that's nice. And I like the way that, you know, in that center area, you have that light blue. So the common areas like the administration or the nurse all has that area. Kids are really going to find their way around this building through the colors. They're going to really get to know it quickly. And I really like that about it. I think it's a great design.
Yeah. And it's
much more interesting than any elementary school I've been in.
It's
stimulate them.
It was a real process, which is the best thing about it, you know. So it didn't just drop out of our minds. I mean, you guys were great to work with, and I think Lisa, you know, we call it wayfinding, but you know, kids are gonna know, are they in neutral territory? Are they in community territory? Are they in a grade level territory? You know. So that's what we're going to price up and see where everything falls.
Anything else from anybody?
This is Kathy. I don't know if you mentioned this and I missed it, but will there be some indication like in the stairwells too, that this is like you're now on the orange floor?
That's a great question. We can definitely do something at the, you know, when you enter in and you're on the same floor level, right? The landing. I don't know when you get into, maybe that stair is a certain color and this stair is another color for the floor below. But that is a great question. We should think about what we do on the stairs. The other thing that I didn't mention is, and it's easy to do, is we can clearly paint this wall like the yellow color, so you know when you're at that door or that level that you're on, you know, the first grade level or the kindergarten level. But the stairwells, that's a great question. We'll have to think about that, because this, maybe they have to be blue because they're common. I'm not sure.
It might be nice, like Lisa said, they'll know their way around the school, so when they're coming up the stairs,
yeah,
it's a visual too of where I'm on my floor.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Hey, Gene, this is Joe Oravec. Again, great concept. Love how it's all linking it together, and definitely how the kids will be able to know which zone or which grade level they're in. I know quite a few weeks back we had the conversation about, and I don't know if this is the right topic to introduce this or reintroduce it, but this was to celebrate George Mitchell and kind of his, you know, is that coming into the color scheme, or that's just another topic in another agenda item?
It's kind of the next level. So and I had mentioned it, but we haven't quite got it there, and it might be part of the last 10%. We wanted to think about what we could do in the lobby and I don't mean it to sound tacky, but some sort of tribute, some sort of, you know, who was George Mitchell, or, you know, whether it's a display or a big graphic or something, you know, Joe.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Gene, do you have anything else you want to wrap up with?
No, I don't, so I can stop sharing if you want.
Okay.
Michael, I just want to add one thing I wanted to add to the committee.
Sure, Joe.
You know, I was multitasking during the finish display, and the cost for the 3/4 stone based on the quantity that they're looking for material is about $15,600, our ballpark number, just so that the committee knows the extent of the cost. Rough, that's a ballpark number off of what the cost of the material will be.
Okay, and that is for the stone that will fill
the foundation wall.
Foundation to prevent a fall hazard.
Yep, you bet.
Okay.
And it can be utilized, and we're going to quantify it and identify it on the site drawing so that the general contractor can utilize it for drainage and other uses on the site, so it's not going to be wasted.
Okay. Very good. Report from the communication group. Lil, Pat, Christina, I know you're on. Scott, you're on as well. If there's anything you want to add, we are updating the website, getting a little bit of a facelift, some more photos. We are reworking the documents section. We realized how many documents were out there and the need to sort of organize them a little bit better for folks, not just us, but the general public, as they look to the website for further information. But that's all I've got for the communications group. I don't know if anybody else has anything from the group. No. Okay. Public comment. I don't see members of the public here. I think everybody on is a member of the committee, but I will call for it. Is there any public comment? Public comment twice. Public comment 3 times. Seeing none. Approval of minutes from July 13th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mike, I just want to note that I was at that meeting, just for the record.
Okay. So we will amend the minutes to show that Joe was there.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Lindy. Do we have a second?
This is Harsh, second.
Harsh with the second. We will do a roll call vote. Give me 1 minute. Let me just get my screen full. Mrs. Holbrook.
Aye.
Mr. Lindy.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Pat.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Matt Rushton.
Yes.
Harsh.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
And chair votes aye. Our minutes are approved from July 13th. Our next meetings are August 17th and 31st. Please make sure you have those on your calendar. For those of you who may have joined a little bit later, we do have a meeting on November 23rd. That is the week of Thanksgiving. We will look to either have that meeting or adjust it based on the holiday that week. If we do adjust it, we will let everyone know in plenty of time. If we don't, we will need to make sure we have a quorum. So we will, as we get closer to that date, look to do that. So again, the 17th and 31st of this month as we wrap up. Anything else from the committee before we adjourn? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mrs. Holbrook. Do I have a second?
This is Harsh, second.
We have a second. I'll roll call vote. Mrs. Holbrook.
Yes.
Mark Lindy.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Pat Driscoll.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Harsh.
Yes.
Matt Rushton.
Yes.
Thank you all. We are adjourned. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great-
Thank you.